If you have the digital SAT coming up in a month, you might be sort of panicking and just reading random passages and just tackling all sorts of questions just to feel like your score is going to magically go up. But you need to relax and you need to approach this systematically because the SAT is a systematic game. It's standardized, it's predictable. And if you want to beat it in the next 30 days, that traditional sort of read everything method is not going to work. You might be wasting time by reading very heavy passages right now, but sometimes we tend to forget that all the SAT questions have the same score. They have the same value for us. So what we're going to do is going to give you a blueprint of what to do on every single day. Day 1, you're going to do this. Day 2, you're going to do that. I'm going to go through every single day. So it might take a bit of time. So this video is not for everyone. It's for dedicated students who want to go to their dream college, want to make this happen. So if you're ready, let's get to it. That's why we're going to tackle the easiest questions first. We're going to go through 30% of your score in the first week. We're just going to cover that and make sure we've got that in the bag before we move on to the next parts. Hi, my name is Hossein. I'm a non-native English speaker who's been helping other international students ace the SAT. So week 1 is more or less based on rules. So you can really get these points easily because you can learn these rules, practice a little bit, and then you'll be good to go. Day 1 is about finding out the sentence boundaries. You need to know what an independent clause is and what a dependent clause looks like so that you can later know the main verb and the subject that's doing that verb. These are important basic skills that are going to help you a lot along the path. On day 2, you're going to learn how to connect these clauses, the punctuations between these boundaries, how to use semicolons, periods, commas to connect these clauses. Of course, alongside the famous fanboys, for, and, nor, but, and these kind of connectors. On day 3, focus on dashes, double dashes, and also colons, how they form new structures, how independent clauses show up after colons, how double dashes give you extra information. Focus on these. These are going to be really helpful in some questions. Day 4 is about subject and verb agreement. Focus on that, practice that. See if you can strip away the extra information, that long prepositional phrases that the SAT gives you, and they sort of hide the subject, and it can be difficult to know, okay, who is doing this verb. Focus on that, find the subject, and get rid of the extra information. You might need that later, but knowing the subject and the verb is important. Needless to say, they need to agree with each other. Day 5 is about verb tenses and consistency. This goes hand in hand with day number 4 because you'll be seeing if these verbs are consistent, if they follow coherently without just shifting around too much. So the verbs must follow a logical sort of timeline. They shouldn't shift around randomly. Make sure your verbs match that timeline. Day 6 is about pronouns and nouns. You need to master pronoun agreement and also focus on differentiating between possessive nouns and contraction traps like the classic it's versus its. On day 7, study modifier placement. A modifying phrase must sit next to the noun it's describing. That's a rigid rule. After week 1, you might have already locked in a massive chunk of your score without even reading a long complicated passage yet. So let's go for week number 2. In week 1, we learned the rigid rules of grammar, the conventions of writing. In week 2, you're going to do the easiest reading like questions, and you're going to secure a lot of points there as well. Day 8 is about transitions, contrast, additions, words like furthermore, therefore, because of that. Make sure you know if the charge, I've talked about it before in one of my videos, make sure you know the charge is, whether the charge is positive or negative between two clauses, between two sentences. If there is going to be a, if there's going to be contrast, or is there going to be agreement between these two, or is there going to be a cause and effect relationship between these two phrases. Make sure you've got those covered because they show up in almost every single test. Know your howevers, know your furthermores. Day 9 is just an extension of day 8. You can focus on cause and effect, as I said. Words like consequently, subsequently, words like that. Make sure you master these because they're going to show up a lot. Also, here you need to make sure you know how to differentiate between a direct result of something and the chronological order, because they say this happened, then that happened. But sometimes this happened, therefore that other thing happened. There's a cause and effect relationship, but sometimes it's just time. This happened, then that happened. Make sure you know how to differentiate between the two. On day 10, still focus on transitions, but focus on every single hack, every single testing strategy and solve as many questions as possible. Like, for example, you could be eliminating options. That's also one of the things you should be focusing on this day. Sometimes you can eliminate two things. This is one of my favorites. Two transitions could mean the same thing, like therefore, and then there's thus. These two are more or less the same thing, and they all point at the same sort of relationship between the two phrases. So they both cannot be correct. So you can just get rid of them real quick. So if they both exist in your choices, you can just get rid of them. So if they're kind of like synonyms, we can eliminate the synonyms, right? Like they can't be the same. Day 11, rhetorical synthesis. These are the bullet point questions, or sometimes like a student notes questions. These are really easy to tackle. Like if you ignore the bullet points first, look at the question, the prompt you've been given, the important thing you should be looking for, and then move on to the bullet points. Like you first find out if you should support something or if you should emphasize a contrast, so you have a mental plan in mind. Then you look at the notes and find the option that does exactly what you're looking for. Day 12, focus on personal order of difficulty. So if the transition questions are easy for you, do take a mock test on Blue Book, jump to question 15, 16, tackle those easy questions of transitions, grammar, rules and conventions, these things that you've already mastered in the first 2 weeks, and practice this. Do the easy questions first. Do the easy questions first when your mental energy is at its peak. On day 13, you won't be studying, but you'll be taking tests. You'll be looking at some questions and answering them. So find a large number of questions that are about transitions and contrasts and things that you've already studied. So those easy questions that you want to bank as soon as possible, and try to build speed. Try to see how fast you can answer them, how you get used to these questions, right? So build speed and solve many questions on that day. You don't have to get too tired, get yourself too tired. No, don't worry about that. Don't push yourself too hard. Just focus on building speed on that day. Because if you bank those questions as soon as possible, like if you spend like 40, 50 seconds on a question, then you can have a lot more time on the heavy passages that you're going to see in the reading section. Day 14 is very important. You're going to look back at day 13 and find your mistakes, your errors. Try to sort of categorize them into like 2 or 3 buckets. Like, were you running out of time? Was it a gap in your knowledge? Or was it just a blunder? Was it just a silly mistake you made? And it's important to look at the questions you do wrong. I know it might feel a bit awkward and kind of annoying, but you should do that. And that's going to help you build even more speed the next time you take these tests. On day 15, guess the words in context questions. They're relatively light compared to inference of massive texts, so it's a good idea to focus on them first. I have a full video on how to tackle words in context questions. It's a full masterclass, so go give it a watch after this video. One main thing to remember is to cover the options and write your own answer from your own mind first, only based on the clues that are already in the text. Then look at the options and see which one is closer to your guess. Day 16 is a continuation of what you did on day 15. So you're going to be focusing on the clues of the text. So focus on the clues, focus on definitions of words that are hidden inside the context, maybe by a use of prepositions, maybe colons, or the charge of a sentence, which is really, really important. Is it saying something good or is it saying something negative about the topic? Day 17, you can't memorize the whole dictionary inside like 2 weeks. So you should get familiar with prefixes, suffixes, and roots of words that help you understand the meaning of a word you haven't seen before. I have a full cheat sheet that's freely available to everyone, so go ahead and check it out in the descriptions. On day 18, focus on some common words in academia that are a bit different from their common everyday meaning, like the word fluid that I talk about in this video that I told you about. So fluid means liquid, but it can mean smooth, it can mean um, like flowing, it could mean flexible, it could mean other things in academia. So get yourself familiar with these words as well. Day 19, structure and purpose. So when you're reading a text, there's a result that is being said, there's a result that is given to you, and then there's a reason behind it that the author brought this up in the first place, also known as the function of that fact. So learn to distinguish between the two and find why something is written and what that is telling you in the first place. On day 20, focus on double text questions. Solve some of these and do think about the main claim of the first text and then see if the second one agrees or disagrees or what is happening. But you've read the question first, so you already know what to look for. And once you've got that, finding the answer choice is much, much easier. On day 21, focus on reading and your speed of reading. So you should be aiming for 100, 120 words per minute. Don't worry if it's less than that. A good idea is to pay attention to the first and the last sentence of a passage. These usually tell you what the main idea is. They usually help you capture that gist of the text more easily. Now let's put everything together in week number 4. On day 22, master the main idea, the central claim of the text. You usually have questions where they ask you what's the main idea of this passage, which is really important. So focus on that on day 22. A good formula for these kind of questions is topic, so what? So think about the main topic of the text, then ask yourself, so what? Then the answer you come up with is going to help you find the right option. Day 23, focus on distinguishing between details and the main idea. Sometimes the test makers give you these options that are completely factual and they're correct, but they're not exactly what you should be looking for in that question. So some questions ask you for a specific detail, but some questions are asking you the main idea of the passage. So practice those. Day 24, textual evidence. So in these kind of questions, you should focus on finding the main claim of the author and then looking for what directly supports or undermines the claim. So you should first make sure to find that main claim of the author, of the researcher first. This day is for those kind of questions. On day 25, you'll focus on data interpretation and graphs. You usually have these questions as well. They might be a bit heavy, but you need to always double check the data point you choose because the choice could be just another factual number, another true statement, but it's not exactly supporting the argument of the passage that you're looking for. Day 26, inference. Practice this. This is one of the most important things the SAT is testing. So it's basically the logical leaps that you should be taking. So you need to stay conservative on this one because you need to make sure that your guess, that your interpretation is true according to the text. If you need to make a wild guess, if a choice looks like, oh my God, it's a wild guess and it might be true, then it is probably not the answer. Practice that. Day 27, focus on the traps. Learn them. So these are your extreme language, the recycled language, or half right answers. I have a full cheat sheet about that in the description. On day 28, you'll take another full test from Blue Book. And of course, leave yourself a rest day before the exam as well. Don't forget to run your strategy, do the easy questions first, and then come back to the heavier questions, however it looks for you. And yeah, hopefully that's gonna increase your score by the end of the 28 days. If you're looking for one on one lessons or joining our community of high achieving students, all the links are below. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.